All right. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first official episode of the For Future Reference podcast. My name is Grayson Perkins, and I am joined by Noah Connor, my friend, my compatriot, my trusted ally. Say hello to everyone, Noah.
How's everybody doing tonight?
And today we've had something very special happen on this day in history. The Berlin Wall was destroyed, taken down, demolished, and people in East and West Berlin and East and West Germany were finally reunited with their loved ones once again. So that has happened on this day in history. And what year was that, Noah?
That was November 9th. That's 1989.
1989. Wow. So yeah, that's a pretty important day. You know, I've never I never really I wasn't alive for it to happen, but the importance of that is quite clear. So today
Yeah, I
we've
think it's exciting.
yeah,
Big
it's
mark in
exciting
history.
that happened in 1989.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Great. Um, so we've got a few things on the agenda today. Music, movies, or we're going to be talking a little bit about a documentary called Room 237 that's about it's about The Shining and Stanley Kubrick's intentions in that movie. We're going to be talking about Bohemian Rhapsody a little bit, which I did not see, but Noah has seen. We're going to be talking about some really good music, and we're also going to be talking about some video games, and that includes Fallout 76 and BioShock. So, Noah, you want to just get right into it with the music, man?
Yeah, let's start. So this past couple weeks, I was listening to Maroon 5, and I really liked it. I thought it was excellent.
What
Um,
album specifically have I recommended you?
so you recommended recommended Songs About Jane. So it came out around 2002. One of the big ones I think was She Will Be Loved and Sunday Morning, and I
Oh,
really really
so
enjoyed
good. Sunday
this album.
Morning is like, I think that's one of the best songs on the album.
Yeah, as well as This Love too, which I think doesn't maybe get as much love as She'll Be Loved or Sunday Morning, but I really enjoyed that one.
No, man,
Um,
This Love is like, that's like one of their top played songs. Like, look
is
at,
it really?
oh yeah, dude. Huge, huge. I mean, look at it on Spotify, dude. It's got
Oh wow.
millions more plays than the other. But This Love was their most popular song for a long time until they went straight
Oh,
pop.
was it really? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I love songs about Jane. You know, I grew up listening to Maroon 5. My parents loved them, and we loved them. And we stopped listening to them right after Overexposed came out, which is when they decided to go full pop, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I hear their because of the radio station that's on at my work,
oh, you cut
and
out there for a second. I didn't catch that.
oh yeah, I just want to say I hear their music pretty regularly, their newer stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm not a fan in any way. It's really bad.
It's not great. I listened to it the other day just to see because I don't listen to the radio, and not a fan.
No, the "Girls Like You" song is played like so much, and it's deafening. It really is.
I just think it's so generic pop.
Especially with Cardi B coming into it, it's like
Yeah,
I don't know.
they went.
It's just not good.
Yeah, they sold out.
They did a
Is
little
it
bit there.
even them as a band anymore, or is it just Adam Levine and a producer in the studio?
I really don't know. I'm not familiar with the whole setup that they have, but
Yeah.
I'll have to say I'm not a fan.
Well, anyway, I think that Songs About Jane is easily one of their best albums. I don't think it is their best album. In my opinion, their best album is It Won't Be Soon Before Long, which is just fantastic. Um, and then they have another good album called Hands All Over, which is really good. But spoiler alert, next podcast I'm going to be recommending you It Won't Be Soon Before Long, which has even greater songs than Songs About Jane. Like, so many more better songs, in my opinion, at least. You might disagree.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking forward to it because I certainly liked what I heard. I had some thoughts about it. I really enjoyed how like it kind of starts off very, very much like a relationship, a budding relationship. Everybody's in love, and then it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of breaking up. Uh, and then by the end of it, one of the song's titles is "Not Coming Home." I'm through with you. Sweetest goodbye. So I like the framing and how it was kind of
Yeah.
like a relationship, kind of measured out in an album.
Oh
I
yeah.
really like how they played on that. And something that I've never really noticed before, because I think when we listen to music, it's mostly on the radio or like a playlist, and not necessarily as much with albums. Um, and just having like the framing device as the album, with each song kind of like each sort of stage in a relationship. I really liked how they played on that with that. And
Mm,
yeah, I thought the songs were obviously very good. She'll Be Loved, This Love, Sunday Morning, excellent.
mm.
Really good. Definitely going to be in the heavy rotation.
Nice, man. Sweet. Yeah, I'm glad I could recommend you something that you ended up liking. Yeah, I always notice that about this album, that it sort of seems like it's very narrative, like it really, a lot of the songs tell a story about a relationship, and the title itself is named Songs About Jane, and I'm sure that the woman's name that Adam Levine or whoever was writing the bulk of the songs was in a relationship was probably not Jane, because I
I'm
don't
going to
think she
guess.
would have appreciated that very much. um
Yeah, maybe some lawsuits would have been happening.
yeah, dude, I'd sue for money. I'd sue,
Oh my
man.
gosh.
If Adam Levine screwed me over in a relationship or vice versa, and then I he went on and wrote a bunch of songs about it, I would totally try and get some money out of that, man.
Absolutely.
I
I don't
wonder,
see why he wouldn't.
what do you think his net worth is? I'm gonna look that up. Adam Levine's net worth.
I bet it's like a surprising number.
Let's see. A moment of truth. 90 million.
Whoa.
That's like a lot more than I thought. I thought it'd be like, like 30 million bucks.
30, yeah, 30. Yeah, but
30, or
wow.
like some mid-range like that. Like, dude,
That's
90
insane.
million dollars. That's
Damn.
nuts, dude. Well, think about it. He does The Voice, doesn't he? That show where they're in the spinny chairs and they press the button and turn around, and like,
Not
"Oh,
familiar.
you're a really good singer." You haven't heard of The Voice?
I've heard of The Voice. I've just never watched it ever.
Oh, well, they have. I've seen it like a couple times on cable, and they have. It's an interesting concept. Like, they've got these total strangers. It doesn't rip off American Idol at all. Trust me. They've got these total strangers that come up and sing a song or whatever, and they're all sitting in chairs. Like, all the judges are sitting in chairs, not they're like facing the audience, but they're not facing the stage.
Yeah.
And like, each judge has to create their own team. So they're sitting in these big chairs that spin, and they press a button and it spins around. And I think like the first person to press the button and the chair spins around, like they get that person on their team or something. I don't know,
Okay.
but I don't know the whole details about it. But I just know they have big red buttons and big red spinning chairs, and people sing really good on that show. So
Well, you had me at big red buttons.
yeah, who doesn't? I I don't understand.
I mean,
What?
I'm down with the show as long as it's got big red buttons. I'm good to go.
Okay. All right. Um.
There's no context to that.
Okay. Yeah, I was searching for one. I was like, is there
No
a
meaning.
joke hidden in here somewhere?
Nope. Nope, not at all. You'll find that to be a common occurrence with me.
That's okay, buddy.
Sure.
um. Anyway, so Maroon 5, out of 10, what would you rate Songs About Jane?
I would give it a solid 8, 8 out of 10.
Wow,
Which is
that's good.
that's
Very
pretty
generous.
that is generous.
Very
Um,
generous.
yeah, I'm definitely liking it. It'll be heavy rotation.
Nice, man. All
All
right.
right.
Well, so I was recommended by you to listen to the Arcs and their album Yours Dreamily. I thought this album was okay. It had some songs that were really, really, really good, but to me, they were overshadowed by the songs that were not necessarily bad, but the amount of songs that were just mediocre in the fact that they sounded the same.
Yeah,
Like,
that's definitely a trapping of Dan Auerbach. He falls very easily into the same sound. I'll give you that.
yeah, I mean, like there were a few where I could really get into, like, Rosie Ooh La La is a great song, Searching the Blue, and of course those are the last two on the album, but I think that the intro, Once We Begin, is really good, and the way that it goes into Out of My Mind is pretty good. But Put a Flower in Your Pocket, I think, is the best song on the album, and that's probably, I'm not surprised that it's their most played song. I'm
Yeah,
not surprised at all.
it's a solid song. It has a really good music video. I don't know if you're sure that was video is animated in a very like it's in the same sort of style as the album art. It's like
Yeah.
kind of like Mexico sort of inspired
Mm,
animation, and it's really good. But
interesting.
yeah, it's a really good song, and I do agree with you. I think that there's like a lot of songs that very much sort of blend together
Mm,
in this album. But yeah, I think there's like a lot of really good songs that kind of get overshadowed by the fact that the rest of them sound very
I
similar.
agree. I agree strongly with that. I also think that, like, the lyrics are so vague to some of the songs that it takes away from your enjoyment because you're just trying to figure it out and you're like, "Oh, this is really deep and it doesn't make much sense." Or, like, it feels like it's kind of purposely written to be edgy and strange, and it's just like, you know, okay. You're
Yeah, that
trying for a certain something, and I get it, but
he does have a target demographic with this. Me being one of those people. I mean, just Dan Auerbach in general. Any of his work, anything that he's produced is I think is really good.
What other stuff has he
Because
done?
he was the lead singer and I think guitarist for the Black Keys, and
Okay.
they've done a lot of good work. They again fell into the same sort of like garage like indie rock sort of thing where he would use like a distortion on his voice for way too many songs.
Yeah, yeah, I know
And
that
then
about the Keys.
yeah, that's like my biggest complaint with the Keys. But they really do pull it around with a lot of their like really inventive and creative good songs they have, but
Mm-hmm.
everything else like that's kind of just the filler. It's just not good in comparison, and like with this album kind of overshadows the other work because it does again fall into the same sort of trappings, and I think it's the voice distortion sort of thing
Yeah,
that
why
really
just sing into the microphone? Don't,
I know
like.
it gives me problems every time I hear it,
Does
but I
he
think there's
does he do that distortion live?
I
Like,
don't know.
thanks for coming out tonight, everybody. I'm gonna sing an unintelligible song, and you won't be able to understand any of the lyrics.
I mean, we could just do the rest of a podcast like this. I wouldn't hate that idea. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he does live. I really don't. But yeah, it can get annoying. I think where it's used properly, it's really good.
Of
Like,
course.
yeah. So I think that's good. It's just he just needs to stop it with some of the other songs and just sing. I
Stop
totally
it.
agree.
Get some help.
And then he did this, which was like a he just kind of did it as a side project, and then he's done two solo albums.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
looking at his solo page
yeah,
on
the
Spotify.
first yeah the first solo album really good. Second one also good. I think the first one's a lot stronger than the second one. He kind of diverted and tried like a lot of different stuff with the second one, which I didn't hate. Just didn't really feel like a Dan Auerbach album. And then
Yeah.
he even produced. So my favorite artist, Haney Katab,
Hmm.
he produced his second album and really worked and really fine tuned his style in a way that it really was really fitting with Dan Auerbach in
Mm.
his style. So I think that album is really good in my opinion. That one is called um the name is escaping me. It's Haney Katab's second album.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so overall, I think he's really good. I think he's got some problems though, with a lot of his work.
Yeah. It's really, it's like that niche section of alt rock where you've got them grouped in with like Arctic Monkeys, and like
Yeah,
similar artists, and it's, I don't know what to call it, but it's really, really like it's it feels tiring to listen to. Like I love some of the songs, and I love a lot of Arctic Monkeys work, and I think it's fantastic, but it's not something that I can just keep going and keep listening to. And I think that's like a different thing between you and me. Like we have a lot of similar interests, but like I just can't. I just can't
yeah,
for forever, man. I got to take it in like small doses. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really in the mood for like some Black Keys. You know, I'm really in the mood for Arctic Monkeys, and it's just like it's a fleeting moment. You know,
yeah. It's not something that you're like, I'm gonna listen to this every day and have no
no,
problem.
no,
And I'm a huge Arctic fan. I even saw them live, which is
yep,
awesome. Um, but yeah, they're new. I would recommend, and this probably isn't your recommendation, but the new Arctic Monkeys album
mm-hmm.
is completely different.
Really,
And it has a really weird long name that I won't be able to recall. But
Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino.
yes, Tranquility Base Hotel. Yeah, that one. It's really good, but it's like if you're an Arctic Monkeys fan, you're not gonna be like clamoring for it. It's a really different album. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically like a smooth jazz rock sort of thing. It's not really
Interesting.
jazzy, but it's a completely different type of album
Mm,
that I think is a little bit easier to listen to
yeah,
than a lot of their other work, but is really it's a huge departure from their bread and butter, which is like pretty like bluesy rock, sort of indie bluesy rock. I don't know.
yeah. I loved AM. I thought AM was fantastic.
Yeah, AM is like their superior album. It's just like so many songs, and they kind of fall in the same trapping where it's like a lot of their songs sound similar, but they're all so like expertly done that
Mm,
it's really hard to not like any of them on AM.
yeah, I mean, Humbug was okay. Uh, that's the only one I listened to. I didn't listen to in either of their other. I listened to Humbug and AM, and that's all I know. But like, they're also kind of similar in a way.
Yeah,
You know, AM is definitely an improvement, but Humbug is
yeah. I think
similar.
AM really does improve on a lot of what they had, and they do. It is really like a very refined
Mm-hmm.
version of them,
Yeah,
and it's probably their best version.
yeah.
I think that a lot of their earlier work does suffer from sounding similar, but there's enough good songs in there to keep you going.
Oh yeah.
There's some weird like odds and ends
Mm-hmm.
in their older stuff.
Certainly.
He actually even did a solo album. Actually, it wasn't a solo album. It was a soundtrack to a movie. Um, but I'm forgetting the movie name. But basically, it's just him, and it's just him with like a guitar, and it's really good.
Yeah.
And he just does some solo work there. It's pretty different from what of the Arctic Monkeys have done before.
Nice, man. Well, back to the arcs. I do not like Yours Dreamily as much as I like AM by the Arctic Monkeys. That is for
No,
sure.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
Um, I think that I kind of want to listen to their EP, The Inventors, because I want to see if the rest of their music is, you know, similar to what they did on Yours Dreamily.
Yeah, I think I've touched around on their EPs. I can't remember being impressed,
Mm.
although I basically just listened to Yours Dreamly. Um, but I don't think it would be a bad thing to check those out.
No, no, I'll definitely look at it. But yeah, what's your? Have you thought about what you're gonna recommend me yet, or are you gonna tell me later?
Sorry, say that again.
Have you thought about what you're gonna recommend me yet, or are you
Um,
saving
I'm
that one
thinking
for later?
thinking maybe another Dan Arabeck.
Okay,
Maybe his
I'll give
first
it a
album.
shot, man.
Yeah, his first album is solid. Although if you had problems with Yours Dreamly, it has probably some of those same problems.
Mm.
But I think it's probably superior to this album.
All right, awesome,
Yeah. So
great.
what are you thinking as a rating on Yours Dreamly?
Ooh, uh, I'll give it a 6. Um,
6. Okay, that's fair.
I liked a lot of the songs. Well, not, you know, I liked a few of the songs,
You liked
but
a few of the songs a lot.
I don't think any of the songs were really bad. You
Yeah.
know, I think it all just sort of faded into this mesh of oneness. You know, I think it suffers from too much from being having so many similarities between each piece, and so that a lot of the songs aren't don't like when I go and listen to an album, I want there's always that one song that strikes me and stands
Yeah.
out. And every now and then there's a few albums where like every song is different enough for me to be able to enjoy it and remember each one of them really well. And there are, I think, only about 20 albums that I like that can do that. Um, and this only has like 3 songs that I really enjoyed. Like really, really enjoyed. The rest of it was pleasant music. It was well done. It was played well by the people playing the instruments. But I don't think that it is. I think it suffers from too much sameness throughout.
Yeah. I totally understand that.
That's just me.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, that's my take on it. I give it a 6.
I think that's a very fair rating.
Give it a 6, and hopefully the Dan Arbeck album, his first album. What's the name of that one, by the way?
I think it's let's see, Keep It Hid.
Keep It
Hid by
Hid.
Dan
All
Arbeck.
right. Well, I hope to this time 2 weeks from now give that a better score than I did this one. I hope.
I
I
think
hope for that.
yeah, I think he might like it. It's more of his bread and butter.
Awesome.
Because it's a little
Sweet.
bit of a departure.
Well, I'm looking
Cool.
forward to it. All right. Well, that's our music segment. What do you say we move on to movies?
Movies, yeah, let's do that. All right. So I guess we have a couple things here. We have The Shining, we have Room 237,
Hmm.
and then we have I watched Bohemian Rhapsody. Let me go ahead and talk about Bohemian Rhapsody,
Please.
and kind of get that out of the way so we can really dive into The Shining.
I have some questions about Bohemian Rhapsody, so explain it first, and I'll ask you questions after your.
Okay, sure. Okay, so Bohemian Rhapsody is basically just a biopic on Freddie Mercury and his life and sort of the beginning of Queen and how they sort of progressed and changed through like the years of them being together. And I thought that was I thought it was it's pretty cut and dry. They didn't really do anything surprising with it, and I didn't really hate that part about it, honestly. The fact that they were pretty like it was kind of formulaic. You know, it's very much just like a regular biopic,
Mm.
um, and I think that that's not the worst part because where I think the movie really hits its stride is just the character of Freddie Mercury and his band and just what they did. I think that really carries the movie. So a couple things to note. I think the choices of music were solid. I think they hit most of the big stuff. I would have loved to have seen Sheer Heart Attack, Brighton Rock. Um, that's probably my favorite Queen song.
Mm.
That and then Flick of the Wrist are some of my favorites. They didn't. I don't think they showcased those.
They're
But I
less
think
well known. I think
they're yeah.
they played it safe and stuck to the hits.
Yeah, I think they played it. Yeah, I agree. They did play it safe with the ones that they did.
What did
Obviously.
What'd they play?
Go ahead. They did a Bohemian Rhapsody. Another one bites the dust. Killer Queen was like their earlier one.
Mm.
They did We Will Rock You. They didn't really even touch on We Are the Champions, which is kind of surprising to me because that's like one of their
Really
bigger ones. Yeah.
interesting.
Um,
I love that song.
yeah, me too. I love it. But yeah, so they mainly focused on those. They did You Are My Best Friend. That was kind of in passing.
Oh, that's a great
Um,
song.
yeah, and then Love of My Life. I think that's the title of my life. Um,
Uh, are,
yeah,
I don't know what.
I think that's one that he did. I might be
Okay.
wrong on that one, but
I don't know that song. So okay.
yeah, they have a pretty large amount of songs, so it's hard to keep them all straight.
Days
but
of
I
Our
think
was it? Those were the days, or Days of Our Lives, or something.
I'm not sure. We'll
Maybe.
just
I know of that song. That was one of the last ones he recorded. Actually, it was the last music video he ever did. Was hang on, let me look it up.
yeah. So basically, it was their main hits, and I really liked the one thing that I did like is they kind of framed like the plot and the progression of each single which is kind of interesting in how they sort of evolved as a band from each one.
Yeah.
Um, because I think a point that he makes is like, um, he's with the studio exec or whatever, and he's like, what makes Queen different? And he's like, well, basically, we're for the misfits, we're for the outcasts, we're for the people who don't really belong. And I think he really embodied that in how like diverse and how he really catered to people who are not necessarily interested in like mainstream rock at the time, and kind of was experimental and really tried some things that people were too afraid to try, um, like A Night at the Opera. Was one of the albums that they kind of centered on at the beginning of the movie, and I guess how like that was kind of their starting point, I guess,
Mm.
one of their bigger starting points,
Yeah.
um, and in their whole career here. And I really enjoyed. I actually had never heard that album, so I went back and listened to it. I was like, wow, there's some really good stuff on this. Um, I think one was I think it's like I'm in love with my car, which is just such a niche thing, obviously. Um, Such a niche song to
Yeah.
have. So I think that really did embody the fact that they weren't just for mainstream; they were for everyone, for people who would enjoy
Mm.
songs about you know, you know, like operatic songs about being in love with your car. So they were very
Yeah.
niche, and I really appreciate Queen in that sort of way. Um, but I think the movie as a whole was really good. It was kind of a paint by numbers, but the fact that Freddie Mercury was the numbers, I think really carried it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
I think Rami Malek was the person that played Freddie Mercury. I think he did an excellent job.
He's great, man.
Um, yeah, he's really good. I haven't seen a lot of his movies, but he's been in a lot of things, and he's done a lot of transformative acting and being like,
Well, his show Mr. Robot is like one of my all-time favorite shows like ever. It's so good. It's like Breaking Bad quality.
seriously, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I've heard
would
of
check
that.
it
I've seen
out
it a little bit.
if I were you, man. It's great.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a look.
Season 1 and
But yeah,
2 are on Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime,
I do
you
actually.
can stream it, man.
So
It's a fantastic show. It only has 3 seasons though.
that's fine with me,
Yeah.
honestly. Shows that have like 8 seasons, 7 seasons, I'm like a little bit too much of a
It's a
commitment.
chore. It's a bit of a
It is a
chore.
little bit, yeah. So I appreciate the
Yeah.
being
Yeah,
concise.
but he's such a good actor. I got really excited when I heard he was playing Freddie Mercury, and from the pictures that I've seen on set, and from the trailers that I've seen, I haven't seen the movie. And from the trailers that I've seen, he looks just like him.
Yeah,
They
I'd say
nail it.
yeah, they really did. Especially in the later years
Mm,
where he had the signature aviators and mustache and
mm.
like the tank top. That really, really looks like him.
When they
I think
play
the
at Live Aid,
yes,
yeah,
that is like I see. Well, I pulled a picture. I'm like, I really have a hard time finding differences here.
yeah,
I think the earlier one, like earlier in the band, I think they looked a little bit different, but they really sealed the deal with the Live Aid. It looks just like him, and his whole cadence and how he carried himself was really like very, very, very much Freddie.
mm,
Um, so I really appreciate his performance. I thought it was excellent. I didn't really have nothing to write home about really about anybody else's performance, because most people were secondary to Freddie because of just his character and how they centered the movie around him. I think everybody else's performances were good. I think it was shot really nicely. Nothing to write home about that. Also, but I think it really. I didn't think they really needed to be bogged down by like
mm,
an art house film of Freddie Mercury. I mean, he is the centerpiece, and that's really all you needed to really worry about.
yeah.
So I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it a 4 on Letterboxd, so 4 out of 5. Felt
Okay,
like it was very deserving of that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so overall I enjoyed it. You had said you had questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask if how much did it focus on the band members outside of Freddie Mercury? I know that it was him centered on the story, but how like important were their roles in the story?
Yeah, so basically, his band members were pretty important because I think one of the main selling points of the band were like especially in the movie, they talked about a lot about how they were a family, and I know that's kind of a cliche to be like, we're a family,
Yeah.
um, and I think that that there was nothing really special about that necessarily, but I think they did embody that, because with Live Aid, him kind of coming out of his funk, I guess, coming back and kind of getting the band back together for that.
Mm.
They really did kind of come back together as a family, and I think that they did touch on the fact that other band members were involved in the writing of the songs, because I think there was like one where there's a scene where he was coming in late to a practice, and like they were all kind of like squabbling back and forth, and then one of the bandmates, for the life of me I can't remember who, just starts playing the main bass track to Another One Bites the Dust, and then they just start, Freddie Mercury's handed like a lyric sheet or whatever, so they start playing it, and then they just kind of like totally forget about the bickering they were having beforehand. And I think that's kind of like that's kind of like a family.
Yeah.
You fight, and then when it comes down to it, you're in it together.
Yeah,
And
man.
so I really appreciated that. Thought the bandmates did have a play an important role. I don't think they overshadowed them.
Mm.
They could be hard to. um, but yeah, I thought they were excellent in it. They're pretty important. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So another question I had: how far into Mercury's life did they get? Like, did they get to the like all the way up to his death, or did they stop at like, that Live Aid era where he plays Live Aid and like that's their bit, their big moment. That's their big famous show that people
Yeah.
still play clips of.
Yeah. I mean, they stopped at Live Aid.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and I think that was probably the right thing to do,
I don't know
honestly.
why I thought that that's what they would do, but it seems right.
Yeah, I felt very right. I think the ending was, because the thing about Freddie, it's like, or sorry, like Freddie Mercury, you don't want to remember like his death in the last years, because
Mm.
they weren't really Freddie Mercury.
They
He
weren't
was always
representative of his
exactly, and I
fame.
think, and putting that at the end of the movie and having drawn out to the point where they shoot his death or whatever,
Mm.
it just wouldn't embody him, and it wouldn't present what Queen and Freddie Mercury really were. And I think that was just the right place to end, was the Live Aid concert.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I kind of like thinking about it. It's like, he kind of, because he died before he ever got old, really. So it was like kind of one of those
Yes,
things where,
he was like 41 or something like that.
yeah. So
Um,
I think it was, yeah, he was around his really early 40s. But it's kind of like, wow, you never saw him really
45.
age. Yeah,
45.
45. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's interesting to me, because you really had the prime years
Mm.
of Freddie Mercury, and then anything after, you wouldn't see him in his 60s because he's dead. So you wouldn't remember him. You only have like the sort of the
Yeah.
really good golden
He's
years
in
of,
his prime.
yeah, he died in his prime basically.
Yeah.
And it's a sad thing, that we lost a legend like that, but the fact is that we remember him as that,
Mm.
and nothing else.
Yeah.
So I in a way I'm kind of like, I guess it's a good thing. It's a good thing to come out of a sad thing, I guess.
Mm. People have been making a lot of comparisons on his early death to Prince. And Prince died in his 50s, but he was still playing. He was still playing, he was still doing shows, he was still recording music. Um, so, like, but people have made comparisons to how, like, they peaked and then died, like, very shortly after. And, it's just sort of a tragic thing. But I think that the thing is that makes their legacy all the more memorable, especially Freddie Mercury. I mean, he's just like they they did so many good iconic songs. I mean, Don't Stop
Yeah,
Me Now, Crazy Little Thing Called Love,
Flash,
um,
Somebody to Love.
Bicycle. That's a
Mm.
goofy song, but
I love it though. Fat were they Fat Bottom Girls? Yeah,
yeah,
Fat Bottom
yeah,
Girls. Yeah.
Fat Bottom Girls. Um, what's that other one that I love? Oh, Radio Gaga. I love that song. I love that song. It's so good. Have you heard that one?
I don't think I've heard that one as
Oh,
much.
dude, it's great. You would like it a lot. It's really good. It's goofy, but it's great. It's
Yeah.
really good. It's about I don't really know for sure what it's about, but they're talking about like the state of music. I think, based on what I interpret the lyrics to be, I think it's a statement on the state of music when they wrote and performed that song. But anyway, um, how much did they touch on his bisexuality and his relationships with both men and women? Because I know that there was that female character who he was like on again, off again in love with, and then he was also like into dudes. So like,
Yeah. So
what's
they
going
did
on there?
something. I think, the movie being PG-13. I think that was probably a good choice. Um, they didn't really get super graphic with it, obviously.
Well, yeah.
But I think they were pretty tasteful about it.
Mm,
They showed that it was obviously like an important thing with
mm.
him, where that was a big part of his identity.
Well, I don't think that it was a part of his identity. I think the media made it a part of
Yeah,
his identity because that's what
exactly.
they wanted to focus on so much.
Exactly. Yeah, and they even have a scene where, yeah, so it's not as though he's, portraying this sort of thing of his,
Mm-hmm.
that he's, bisexual, but they did touch on it in a tasteful way, I thought. And
Yeah.
then, in one portion they're having um like a press conference where they're just trying to jab him about it, be like, talk to us about your sexuality, do you like guys? Like, what's the deal? What are the rumors? And he's basically like, um like, what about you? Like, and basically kind of mouthing off to the reporters and being
Yeah.
very kind of closed off about it.
Mm.
And yeah, so I mean, I think that it was obviously part of his life. In his private life, they did touch on it where, initially, I forgive me, I can't remember the name of the woman, but basically, he falls in love with this girl, and then he realizes that he's bisexual, and then he sort of gets involved with this bad sort of character. I can't remember his name, but obviously based on real life, I can't remember this name though. But and it kind of breaks the band up. Really, it really causes him to be secluded in a way, and
Mm.
kind of puts him in this whole world where he's really not a part of. I think
Interesting.
that's yeah. I think that's kind of sort of pressured on by his partner at the time. And then later on in the movie, he loves his first girlfriend, his first wife,
Mm. Oh,
and
they were
they does.
married.
Yeah, they were actually married.
Oh,
At least in the movie, I'm
yeah.
gonna assume that a biopic is gonna be accurate in that.
Interesting.
But yeah, so they got married. They got a divorce. He's with these guys, this main one guy, and then it
Mm.
kind of breaks the band up, makes him fire one of his I think it was his manager. Could be his man. Yeah, I think it was his manager that it drove Freddie to fire him
Yeah.
basically, which is pretty disappointing.
Mm.
And it kind of made him a shell, and really took what was Freddie really out of him, and really kind of gave way to just drugs, and just this kind of life that didn't really embody him.
Yeah.
And then he through that, he was still always in contact with his first wife. It seemed like he still cared a lot about her,
Yeah.
and was always excited seeing her, and even disappointed when she would have boyfriends, and like seemed like that
Yeah.
would really really affect him.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
I
then
I mean it. So does it kind of allude to the fact that she was always the one that he loved most?
yeah, and I think he's said that in interviews, like she's always been the love of my life.
Yeah.
And I think that's really sweet. I think it's kind of like bittersweet, because he
Yeah.
never really had like a real go with her,
Yeah.
and that's disappointing. But
Why?
I think he ends up.
Why
Go
did
ahead.
they get divorced? The Was it just that was he cheating on her or?
I think they allude to like a possibility of cheating, but I don't think they really they don't really show the fact that like he cheated on her. I think that he was
Yeah.
more like, hey, I'm bisexual, like I got to figure this out. And I think she was
Yeah.
just like,
Okay.
and even in the movie she's like, Freddie, you're gay, like I've known this for a long time. Which was, it was kind of humorous, but also
Well, I'm
sad.
I'm not sure that like the media said he was gay. I think he was really, in love with this woman. I don't know that he was just straight up, homosexual. I think that he was more bisexual. Because I mean, like, maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not quite
Just
sure. Yeah,
watching documentaries I've seen, like, he talks about wanting to have kids with a woman. One day, finding the right girl and settling down and having an actual
yeah,
family with a woman. But he also talks about how, like, he falls in love with other men or has relationships rather with men in that same vein. So it's not like, I think I think that the media tried to portray him as a homosexual to sort of like to have some sort of like something they could paint him as, like to create gossip where there wasn't any.
yeah.
Whereas in reality he just didn't he was just bisexual. He loved both men and women. You know.
Yeah, I think that's probably the more accurate story. Is really
Mhm.
just he was a bisexual, and the media obviously trying to make more out of something than there really was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I think, gosh, he's such a crazy, amazing icon in rock
Absolutely.
history.
Yeah.
And I've whenever I first started listening to Queen, I was like, this is amazing. This is
Yeah.
some really good stuff.
Oh
Um,
man, I've been listening to them since I was really little, man. Like, my dad, I grew up on classic rock, and Queen was always in the playlists, always.
Yeah,
So,
I mean it's solid stuff. I unfortunately grew up with like Depeche Mode and Talking Heads, so not much there really. For I mean I'm getting into it. Like Talking Heads is
yeah,
great. They're so good, but
I don't. I'm
when
not
you
familiar with their music at all. I haven't listened to any of it.
they're like a sort of a punk indie rock fusion sort of thing. They're
I'd
really
probably
good.
like it.
You would probably like them.
Yeah,
They
I'd
did
probably like it.
I'm trying to think. Psycho Killer, Qu'est-ce que c'est? That song's really good.
I don't know it.
Um, yeah, I'll have to send it to you. But yeah, so I'm getting really into them. I've listened to them for probably about a year now, and
Nice,
they're excellent. I love them.
cool, man.
But yeah, so all right, so that kind of wraps up Bohemian Rhapsody. Do you
That
want to
is.
get into some movies, some other movies here?
Oh man,
So much to talk about here.
man. I don't know
Like
if
a
we should
mountain.
take on Room 237 slash The Shining, or if we should talk about something else we've seen.
Um,
What else have we seen? What have we watched?
I think I think I really just watched 237.
And The Shining, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and things.
okay, well let's get into it then, because it's a big old pile of stuff we got to talk about here. So when we watched The Shining together, it was me, you, Amanda, your girlfriend, and
Hmm.
Jacob, our mutual friend,
Hmm.
and um, that was my first time seeing that movie in like an able like in a sense where I'm really able to pay attention and enjoy it.
Sober minded.
Yeah, I mean, I saw like a heavily edited version of it as a kid. I think
Yeah.
it might have even been like a TV version of the movie or something. When I was
Mm.
little, my dad was like, "Hey, watch this scary movie with me," and that was really evident in when he's in the bathroom and the full nude woman is in there, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't remember this scene when I watched it as a kid." So
It's pretty glaring.
my dad was probably clever in cutting that out of the movie, but this was my first real time seeing it and getting to take it in at its fullest, and my goodness, was it
It's something.
incredible.
Yeah.
First of all, without unpacking any of the rest of it, it is an incredible movie. Incredible horror movie. It builds suspense from the second it begins. That low those low musical humming and drumming noises when you've got the
Yeah.
helicopter shot with them
Oh my
flying over
gosh.
the island and then the car,
Mhm.
dude.
It's
From the beginning of the film, it builds up that tension.
yeah. It really starts early, and it's incredible.
Mm.
The helicopter shots were just just amazing. Yeah, in conjunction with the music, the score,
Oh
excellent.
yeah.
That was really good.
Do you know who
Um,
composed it?
I'm actually not familiar with the composer. Um, yeah, so I'm not sure who actually did the musical work. I do have it pulled up, so I might be able to find who did it.
Let's see here.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Music
Good
composed
one.
by Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind. I've never heard of either of them, but that's interesting. It was
Yeah,
really good. I
yeah,
loved the
I thought it was
music.
excellent. I mean, it's iconic.
Mm,
The scene where he's breaking through the door, which I have some. There's
dude.
like a mountain of trivia on this, and this one is actually kind of interesting. So they built a lot of prop doors for him to cut down,
Mm-hmm.
but he actually was a volunteer fire department uh, worker. So
Really?
he was actually really good at cutting down prop doors. So they had to build like a real like sound door from to actually like rip to pieces with the axe, which is kind of
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about
Um,
him. It's
yeah. I mean,
the running time of the film is 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it feels shorter.
it feels way shorter
It
than that.
does not feel like it drags on one bit.
No,
Like your eyes are glued to the screen for the whole thing. And yes, I know probably some of the audience is going nuts that I've never seen The Shining before. I've even got friends who I told them I met up with some of my friends from film school today, and we were talking about a new project that we're going to be doing, and we I was like, yeah, so I saw The Shining for the first real time recently, and they're like, what? You've never seen The Shining? And I'm like, I've seen it, but I didn't know. I wasn't able to
really watch
follow
it.
it. I was a kid. My attention span was like that. I wasn't able to really follow it, but my God, man, this movie gripped me through the whole thing. And I can't tell what Stanley Kubrick did intentionally and unintentionally, and I love it.
Yeah, I think that's a big point of contention.
Mm,
Is what he's done intentionally. What are the fans sort of surmised that he never really intended, and what
mm.
he was like super. I think this movie is very very intentional and very purposeful.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of very intentional things that he did that
Mm,
don't really give an immediate explanation. That I think Room 237 touched on super heavy with with a lot of the things that had to have been intentional. Like there's no
yeah.
way they could have accidentally done this.
Well, one
Um,
thing I think, one of the most obvious things is Shelley Duvall. I think that personally, and this is just based on what I've read about Kubrick and what I looked up on Wikipedia, and I know not a good not a good source, but um, her Shelley Duvall is an annoying actress. She is just not fun to look at. She's not very attractive. I know that's offensive, but I don't like. She's not a very attractive looking person. She's clearly not the best actress, and I think that Kubrick chose her very purposefully in order to make people watching the movie unsettled. But when it reaches the stressful moments and the moments where she's
oh my
supposed to be
gosh,
afraid and terrified, she pulls like excellent acting out of nowhere. Because when she's
really?
just being normal and regular, it's not immersive. It's goofy, even.
It's very plasticky and
Yeah.
very obvious, and
Mm.
like the way she talks, and it's almost as though she talks in a way that's really it's really
Innocent.
submissive. It's really
Sub-
submissive and really innocent. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think I agree. I think Stanley Kubrick chose her intentionally, and I
Mm.
think she really conveyed that sort of acting
Yeah.
and sort of
and
cadence.
and when Jack starts to kill her, or well, just starts to kill. When he starts to attack her and Danny, she pulls like this insanely good acting out of nowhere, and I wasn't expecting that. I was like,
Yeah,
oh my, like whoa, this is such a stark contrast to her from the beginning of the movie, where she's so like innocent and reserved, but in that whole conversation where she finds out like that Jack is losing it, she goes from innocent and curious to like straight terrified, man. And she
Yeah.
acts the hell out of that terrified portion, man. I mean, it's so good. It's so good. She's incredible. Um, yeah, I thought she was one of the best parts of the movie. Right up there with Jack Nicholson. But the both of them and the way they interact with one another at the climax make this movie. Nicholson is so outstandingly good in this film. Um, he's probably one of my new favorite actors, honestly. Just after seeing this movie.
Yeah, I mean, he really he gives some superb acting
Mm,
in this. I think, gosh, he really he does uh, the transition from regular Jack Torrance to uber psycho Jack Torrance
mm,
so well. I think he, like, you can see it in the scene where Wendy and Danny are going through the maze, and he gives this look, and it's just so like it's really such a unique look. It's really unique to
mm.
Stanley Kubrick, um, because he's done that same sort of look in Full Metal Jacket when Private Pile is in uh, the the bathroom, and he shoots the general and himself.
Yeah.
He gives the exact same look. I think I haven't seen Clockwork Orange, but I've seen bits and pieces.
Mm,
And the main character in that one gives the same look as he's driving,
yeah.
and it's such a like a just such an evil,
The crazy
un
eye.
exactly, such an unsettling look,
Mm-hmm.
um, that is displayed perfectly in this character by his transition from normal to just insanity. And I think that was done
Yeah.
really well. I don't think anybody could have pulled it off like Jack Nicholson really did in this
No,
one.
no, not no one. I can't think of a single actor. I mean, it is just incredible.
Yeah,
Um,
so it was really well done. Loved
so
it.
we, in conjunction with our viewing of The Shining, we watched Room 237, which is a documentary about the conspiracy theories surrounding The Shining. And
Boy, is it a lot.
yeah,
I mean, some really good. And my favorite thing about the documentary is that it does not discriminate good theories and bad theories, and
yeah,
really it does
yeah,
shine a light on these people and just the crackpot theories that they come up with. And I love each and every one,
yeah.
because they're delivered with such passion. Each interview is like they're so they are so into just the fine details of Kubrick's filmmaking,
Mm,
and they're so passionate about it. And even the most wild theories are really gripping, because they're like, they have such a they have so much zeal about what they're talking about,
yeah,
that
yeah.
it really like grabs you.
Like you can tell they know they're right.
Yeah, even though some of them are definitely wrong.
Yeah,
Because gosh, there's just some crazy ones. Like, for instance, there's this one scene where I think one of the interviewees is talking about how they're bringing furniture in, and how
yeah,
like the
yeah. Oh,
shots are lined up,
oh yeah. I
and
noticed that one too. That's one that I got really, really passionate about. I was like, you know what? No, dude,
they're
they're
just bringing in furniture.
they're just they're just walking, and like yeah, his exit of the screen times perfectly with this character's exit. Yeah, that's called direction
Yeah, it's just
on
it's just
set.
pacing of the
It's
shot. Yeah,
just pacing. Like
it's
yeah,
nothing special.
like it's not. There's no like horrible human tragedy hidden in there in that scene of the dude moving the carpet. Like, I mean, come on.
There's
Um,
there's there's really nothing there. I loved how passionate he was about it, and how excited he was
yeah,
about the carpet.
he got me
Um,
excited about the carpet.
I
I was
was
like, oh,
genuinely excited.
there might be something about to this carpet. Maybe this guy's right. And then I
No,
thought
he's
about it,
wrong.
and I was like, that's ridiculous.
No, he's just smoked a couple too many doobies that
Yeah,
day.
a couple too
It's
many
really
joints, man.
exactly. But yeah, so did you want to get into some of the theories in 237?
Sure, we can. I don't remember very many of them, mostly because I
I
mentally was checked out after watching that documentary.
Yeah, I
Um,
did write down some interesting ones
okay,
that I love to get into. So the documentary touched a lot on the Apollo moon landing,
that's right.
and
Yep, I remember
and
that.
which is kind of a big deal, and it's hard to deny that that it's not in any way involved with The Shining, because I mean you see it with the Apollo shirt,
Yeah.
and it's like, and it's obviously not a shirt picked up at like Macy's or something. Like I think that was custom made for this movie, and I don't know
Mm,
why they would custom make a shirt that has the Apollo 11.
I
And
don't know.
there's one specific scene that is really telling of this, where it's famous. It's one of the famous scenes where Danny's playing with his trucks on the octagonal carpet. Um,
Looks exactly like the launch pad.
exactly. That's just what I was going to talk about. They look exactly like the launch pads, which I think is
Excuse me.
it you're I think it could be intentional. It may not be intentional, but it's something. It's
Yep.
something there that really does have a bear really really good resemblance to the
Mm,
launch pads, um, and the fact that he stands up from that shot almost as though he's shooting off from the launch pads, and then that scene is directly followed with him going into room 237. Um, and
mm,
another thing about it is the fact that when the ball rolls down, another thing is that that took like 30 shots or whatever to get the ball rolling perfect, which is that's just Kubrick's crazy like reshooting mentality.
well, I mean, if it human error, like if you can't get the ball to line up perfectly, I mean,
I mean, that's I would say that for any other director, but with Kubrick, it's like I mean, he did like I think there was some like 60 takes of like him knocking the door down and stuff like that. Like it's
really,
just ridiculous. And I think
jeez.
the scene with the elevator, I think that took 6 takes.
They used a
And that
miniature for that, right?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they used a full set for the
For the blood,
for the blood. Yeah, because
really?
it took them weeks to reset up each shot.
Oh my god!
So I'm pretty sure they used a
But they only used like the same shot for the whole movie.
yeah, they used the same shot, but it was they had to do it like 6 times, I think,
Mm, interesting.
which is
Yeah,
insane.
I definitely think there's something to the Apollo 11 stuff. I think I don't know what I believe, dude. I wasn't around. I'm too young to remember that era. And to be honest, I don't care all that much. But I know for a fact the government keeps a lot of secrets from us.
I don't
Um,
see why the moon landing couldn't be one of them.
yeah, I mean, it's certainly plausible. I just think that the guy who was explaining it got a little. I don't know. Maybe he was a little like he did. He was like, "I have proof," but he doesn't present any of the proof in the
Yeah,
documentary. And you're like, "Okay, what's this proof?" And he's like, "Uh,
it happened.
it
Uh,
happened." You know.
my word. Um, yeah, I think that I think that definitely comes into play. The whole idea of a suggestion of what happened without anything to really back it up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
Um,
not like you can go to Kubrick and ask him, right? The poor guy's dead. You know.
yeah, that's a shame.
He passed before he could tell us all his secrets. So.
He did do an interview, which I'm going to bring up, which is kind of interesting, about The Shining. But to finish up the octagonal carpet scene, I
Mm,
think is interesting. The carpet actually flips
yep, I
as he
noticed
stands
that.
up,
The
which is
colors, swap places.
yeah. So it gives this effect where the carpet is basically doing like a 180 around on Danny.
Yeah, that's right.
And looking at the shot, I don't know how they were able to do it,
Mm-hmm.
because everything is laid out the same. The layout of the hallway is the same. So I don't know how they were able to flip the carpet like that, but they ended
Probably
up
exactly the way you would think, the hard way, like Kubrick
probably the
demands
hard way.
everything to be done.
Exactly. So it very well could have been that way. It just seems, but that really gives credence to the fact that it had to be intentional.
Mm.
Why would he go through the trouble of doing something so annoying to try and like correct without it being for some reason? And I think it was, I think it was part and due to when the ball rolls, it goes into the center octagonal
Mm.
piece, and then as he stands up, it switches, and then it's basically sealed in.
Mm.
And I think what that ball has to is somewhat representing is the fact that, like he's kind of by going into room 237, that ball was kind of sealing the deal, as in like it was kind of like outside of him what was really going on in room 237 was really concerned,
Yep.
but then the ball rolls in and he's like, okay, I'm gonna check this out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's really intentional. And I think the moon landing, sorry, not the moon landing, the launch pad and the
Hmm.
rocket ship, I think, if Kubrick isn't trolling his viewers, he's saying something about it. I think there has to be something there.
Maybe he was simply saying that he thought it was fake,
It
not
could be,
necessarily that he was connected with it.
yeah. And I think there's other things in the movie that kind of um, suggest that he was involved,
Oh,
but there's nothing that really it really could be anything. I think that he's a master of like just having all these sort of loose ends and not telling you which ones matter and which ones don't, and kind of leaving it up for you to decide and
yeah,
decipher all these different things. And I love
yeah.
that about his movies. Um, but yeah, I think that part was interesting. Another
Hmm.
thing is, in an interview, he says that so the photo, and I've always tried to rack my brain and figure out what the meaning of the photo at the end of the movie was.
The 1921 Fourth of July party.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that one. And he speaks on that, and he actually says that it was Jack being reincarnated. So that's kind of interesting because I never really
Reincarnated into the past.
no. So basically, the photo was not necessarily a real thing, but it was meant to suggest that there's always going to be a quote unquote Jack Torrance in this hotel. There's always going to be a man who murders his family. There's
A
always because like
caretaker. Yeah.
a caretaker, exactly, a caretaker that ends up murdering his family,
Yep.
and that was meant to suggest that he was Jack coming back to the hotel. Like Jack doesn't realize it.
Mm.
Jack Torrance doesn't really realize it, but when he gets there, he's basically transformed into the quote unquote Jack Torrance that will always be with the hotel, which is the caretaker. And that's kind of his reincarnation, coming back to the hotel and taking part in the murder of his family, like every other caretaker would. The previous one being Grady.
Yeah. I think the conversation he has with Grady, that is such an interesting scene to
So
me.
good.
Like the act, I don't know who that, but like the guy playing Grady, I don't know who the actor was for
It's
that.
Philip Stone, and there's a lot of actors in this movie that like two, for instance. Um, Philip Stone actually has done a lot. He was Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom,
What?
Clockwork Orange, and The Shining. So he's been in some other things.
Mm.
But like for instance, the witch, I call it the succubus because that's what I think it is. I think it's like a sexually
Mm-hmm.
charged demon that
Yeah.
kind of possesses room 237.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of indicative by the carpet.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of suggestive. But the female actresses for the old witch and then the younger witch or succubus, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they never acted in a movie before or after The Shining.
Interesting.
So that was it. That was it for them, which is kind of interesting. But it
Yeah.
doesn't really go anywhere
Well,
other than
Kubrick
just
got
that.
people who he knew looked like what he wanted.
Yeah,
This guy who played Grady, I've already forgotten his name. You just told me.
Philip Stone.
Yeah. I like he probably hasn't been in many other big name movies other than the ones you named and The Shining.
Yeah, I think he's more of a maybe a friend of Kubrick. I think he's done some other smaller. He's done a lot of TV stuff,
Mm.
so not
Yeah.
really
So
bigger stuff.
Kubrick doesn't always pick big name. He picks who fits the role, and that's
Yeah,
very evident in Wendy's character. I mean, Shelley Duvall, like, she's not your bombshell babe.
no, of course.
But she is a good actress, and she does what he needs her to do, and she looks like how he needs her to look like. And that's what I love about Kubrick.
Yeah,
He makes. Oops, that's my phone going off here. Sorry about that. He makes choices that are necessary to the narrative, and doesn't just hire big name for the sake of hiring big name. But oh, yeah, I think Grady. I think that bathroom scene with Grady. There's so much more to break down about that scene than
Yeah,
how it appears. I want to rewatch the movie just for that scene.
yeah, that scene was amazing.
Mm.
And I do have some thoughts on it. I think that scene, there's this interesting thing because in the movie you're not sure what is actually real and
Mm-hmm.
what is like subconscious, like this hotel messing with your mind,
Yeah.
sort of another level of real.
Yeah, you're
And
not sure what's haunting and what's an illusion
exactly.
in Jack's
My
head.
Yeah, and my theory is that Grady is physically real. And I'm
Like, as
like
in a ghost or an actual person?
maybe one or the other. It's not solid. I came up with it today, but
Okay.
because here's the thing, a lot of it is like supernatural. Like a lot of it's
Mm.
not really happening. It's a trick of the mind.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of like you can't really ground it in reality. And I think
Mm.
his character is grounded in reality by the fact that he unlocks Jack's door.
Yeah.
And and,
That is
and
the
that's
only thing that's left unsolved in the movie.
um yeah, that it's kind of a big deal right there.
How does Jack get out?
I think he's a real person. I really do think that he is a real person that unlocks his door. Because
Well, I mean,
I'm not sure.
he could be some sort of apparition. I think it's been hinted at that Danny unlocks the door at some point.
I
Oh,
don't know that his
no,
location in the
because he's in
movie
his
at the time.
bed. Well, I mean, I think that like Danny like mentally like unlocks the door. You know, like he uses his shining to do it
To
or
unlock the
whatever.
door.
I've heard that before. I've heard that a possessed Wendy unlocked the door because she started. This was right around the time that she finally started seeing ghosts around like during the climax and after the climax. It was only until only up until that point she hadn't been seeing anything. Then when
Yeah.
Jack is trying to kill her and Danny,
Hmm.
she finally she sees the party, she sees the dead skeletons all over the room, she sees the gay sex scene in the room with the bear,
The bear pig or
yeah, the
whatever.
bear pig or what, I don't know what
I
the
think it's a
costume was.
yeah. I think it's a warthog. I think
Yeah,
honestly.
that. Well, she sees that, and she looks down the hallway and she sees the thing that Danny's been seeing the whole time, the
Yeah.
bloody elevator, and she sees
Exactly.
it, and I think that that is connected in a way to um, finding out like what's real and what's just in your head because I think that the Jack going to the bar was in his head.
Yeah. I think that was in his head.
And I think that the scene when he tr- walks around with his drink and bumps into Grady at the party, he's
Hmm.
in his head, but he transfers from being in his head into Grady as a ghost and he's haunting him. And the
Yeah.
reason that Grady is real is because if it were in Jack's head, he could not have learned that Danny is trying to bring an outside force into them.
Exactly.
You cannot learn new information that you don't know from something
Yeah.
that's just in your head. This has been explored in numerous medias and it's accepted as fact. People who think that something is real but it's just in their head never learn any new information.
Yeah.
Never.
It's
They
impossible.
they it's impossible because it's in their head and they're only basing it off of what they're familiar with. Now, maybe they could create information based on the personality of the person they're imagining, but that's only if they know that person well enough to guess at what they would most likely say in a situation. Now,
Yeah.
with in regards to Grady, Jack doesn't know a thing about Grady except for the fact that he butchered his daughters.
Yeah.
Um, and so he even brings that up to him. He's like, "You're the guy who butchered your daughters." Maybe Jack thinks that this is all in his head. Maybe Jack's even conscious of it. But the moment that Grady tells Jack that Danny is attempting to contact an outside force is the moment where you're like, he's not in Jack's head. He is actually appearing to Jack. He's
Yeah.
actually talking to him because he presents new information to Jack that Jack could not have possibly known at all.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
no way that he could have known about Danny.
And I think that kind of goes to my theory with him unlocking the door, because what is the purpose of bringing an outside force with Danny? It's to alleviate sort of the tension building,
Mm.
and having somebody who's like, like, I'm gonna like figure this out, and because it's just him and his mom. And I
Yeah.
think that I think the idea of Danny unlocking the door, I can't buy into that, because Grady is the one talking to him,
Mm.
and Grady is alluded to being the one opening the door.
Mm.
Now, I don't think Danny could have possibly done that, because Danny was trying
Yeah.
to bring an outside force that Grady talked to Jack about and warned him about. So I think those two
Yeah.
things can't allow themselves to exist in the same place. Danny couldn't have unlocked the door if he's trying to like get another person in
Mm.
that Grady's letting him in on.
I think that Grady unlocking the door for Jack was Jack's final chance to inherit this mantle as the caretaker.
Yeah.
Um, because Grady is passing on himself being the caretaker to
Mm-hmm.
Jack. Because
Exactly.
Kubrick himself says there's always been and there always will be a Jack Torrance at that hotel.
Yeah.
And what he
Exactly.
means by that is that there will always be someone who murders somebody, someone who kills somebody, someone who keeps the cycle going. And I think that Grady is an amalgamation of all the ones who came before him and himself. And him unlocking the door for Jack is finally saying, you are now the caretaker. Now you are the amalgamation of everyone before you. Go and do your duty.
Yeah.
And ultimately, Jack fails,
Exactly. And
ending the cycle.
that
Unless
that is an interesting thought, that the cycle would be ended by Jack.
well, there's no one. Oh, well, maybe it wouldn't be, because Jack dies in the maze,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that Grady. Does
No,
Grady?
you know
Did
what?
they say that Grady kills himself?
I think Grady kills himself, but here's the thing. I think that Jack doesn't stop the cycle, because when you zoom in on the photo,
Mm-hmm.
it shows Jack as always being there at the hotel. So I think he
Yeah,
did take over the mantle. I think he did.
interesting. But he didn't
Um,
kill them, so he didn't pass. Grady said that he needed to kill them to achieve his goal.
then I really can't wrap my mind around what was
I don't think that Jack succeeded, but I think that him being in that picture is representative of the fact that there has always been a caretaker. There has always been this amalgamation of spirits inheriting one person, and Jack is a representation of that at the current time that the movie takes place.
Yeah, I think that's probably right there.
Um,
Um,
and
the other thing,
that's the most likely intention for that Kubrick had for the film.
probably, I think that's probably right on there.
Mm.
I think the other thing that was interesting. Oh, dang, what
Oh,
was
you
it?
broke out. You broke up there for a second.
Sorry. Yeah, I think the interesting thing about that was was oh, for the life of me I can't remember what I was gonna say, but yeah. Anyway, I think Grady's character was really interesting in how he was kind of the duality of the spirit sort of side of him,
Mm-hmm.
and then the actual physical side of because he does get all that food, that not food but the
The
drink on his coat.
Yeah, but Jack could easily have been imagining that. I think that
Mm-hmm.
Jack's imagination of the party
Mm-hmm.
is what gives Grady an entrance. So, this is kind of hard to explain, but try and follow me here. Jack is imagining this whole scenario of the party in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Grady doesn't really have a way to introduce himself to Jack. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm a ghost, and you need to do this to be the next guy.
Yeah.
Um, the next caretaker or whatever. So Jack imagining hallucinating all this stuff in his head is a gateway for Grady to slip in there as a innocent
Mm.
butler
Yeah, I
and
think you're right.
spill his drink all over Jack. And he's like, "Oh, let me get alone with you to help you clean this up. Let me get
Hmm.
alone with you and take you away from this hallucination." And finally, Jack stops having the hallucinations because he doesn't hallucinate for the rest of the film.
Yeah, I think that's it.
He doesn't have any hallucinations for the rest of the film. For the rest of the film, he is focused, dead focused on what he needs to do. Um,
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And the other thing that I was going to say beforehand was, I think the idea of him taking on the mantle in his sort of hallucinogenic state
mm-hmm.
is him telling what was the Lloyd, him talking to Lloyd, and which was the
Yeah,
bartender, him saying, "You always were the best of them, Lloyd." He doesn't know Lloyd. He's Jack Torrance. He comes from, he's never been there.
I think that
Um,
yeah, that's an
so that I
interesting thing I might have missed. I don't know.
well, because I think it goes to the idea that he's kind of in one way maybe being possessed by the previous caretaker, because why would he say you were the best of them, Lloyd? Because he's never met Lloyd.
I think that the whole character, the whole idea of Lloyd is Jack subconsciously making a statement about the because Kubrick hides history throughout this movie, and I
Yeah,
think that the whole thing with Jack and Lloyd is a statement on oppressive, I guess oppressive. Well, they talk about this in 237. They
yeah,
say that Lloyd, white man's burden, Lloyd, white man's burden. That Jack's making
yeah,
some sort of statement, or Lloyd, rather, is like some sort of amalgamation of like hit racism throughout history and or something like that, and it's
yeah,
representative of um, him excusing the fact on white man's struggle, and even though that white people are historically oppressive to races that aren't white,
yeah, yeah. Speaking historically, I would agree. Yeah, I think that it's been predominantly white people who have kind of been the oppressors,
for the
and
last few thousand years.
yeah, and I
Um,
mean, I don't really know where exactly he's trying to go with that.
yeah,
It kind of falls
well,
a little bit flat for me because I'm not sure.
he touches a lot on the Holocaust, but he also touches on white people's oppression of Native Americans, which is definitely huge throughout this film.
Yeah, and I mean,
Huge. Native American imagery is
all over.
everywhere.
It's
Everywhere.
throughout the entire film.
And they even mentioned that the place is built on a Native American
They,
burial ground, and that they
they
had
had
to
to fight
fend.
off.
Yeah, they had to fight off
Yeah,
Native Americans who were coming. And so that right there is sketchy in
yeah,
itself. And Stanley Kubrick clearly had a heart for the Native American peril in the United States. And um, my great grandmother, she used to tell me stories about how her grandmother, she would, as a little girl, she would go to her grandmother's house, who was full blood Cherokee, and so I've got like a very small part of Cherokee blood in me, but so I think even if you don't have Native American ancestry, you can still pretty clearly understand that America committed some terrible atrocities on the Native Americans. I mean, even today, like they're still putting the pipeline through their land. And
yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely some truth to that. I'm not really up on the Native American oppression in
yeah,
today's world, but I
yeah,
mean, I can see that there's certainly something there. The Trail of Tears. Um, so I mean,
yeah. I mean,
I
there's
can see
just
where he's
so
pulling from.
much. There's so much oppression of Native American peoples, and I think that Kubrick was really honed in on that at the time of making this movie, and he leaves that imagery everywhere, everywhere, all over the film.
Yeah, it's really it's in a lot of shots, like especially just any shot in the main hall.
Mm,
It's everywhere.
yeah. Well, it's
Like these
ironic
lights.
too. They built the freaking building on a Native American burial ground, but they hung up all these Native American decorations all over the whole freaking place, man. That's
Yeah.
ironic. Like, what? I mean, come on. He had to be stating something there with the irony.
Yeah, I think he's. I mean, just on the surface, all I can see is really the idea of what's the word? It's like appropriation. Like they're
Mm,
taking the land, they're
yeah,
building on this land, and then
yeah,
like look at it, it's Native American. I mean, there's something that
yeah,
he's saying there that I don't really. That's the thing about Kubrick. I'm not sure what he's really saying there, but I
yeah.
know there's something there.
We can never fully understand what
Yeah.
his mind and his intention for the film, but we can understand good chunks of it, I think. And I think that Room 237 as a documentary really helps unpack a lot of
Yeah.
mystery. Can we talk a little bit about some of the more ridiculous, one of the more ridiculous theories that I found? That woman, when she talks about
About this
the
poster.
Minotaur
Yeah,
on
I
the
know. I was gonna
poster,
bring that up.
what?
I,
She's like, that is clearly a Minotaur, and I'm like, no, it isn't. That
a
is not
Minotaur.
clearly a Minotaur. It's very abstractly a Minotaur. And I don't see, I never even, like, I had to look at that image for like 10 freaking minutes before even seeing any sort of resemblance of a Minotaur. And she's like, it is clearly a Minotaur.
Yeah, it doesn't really look that much like a Minotaur.
No,
Honestly,
it looks like a dude skiing.
it looks like a dude who's got really, really tiny legs who's skiing. Now,
Yeah, I noticed that.
I'll have to say this: they do make it a point to bring skiing up in the interview, and what they
Yeah, so
and that well, hold
that
on. I think that there might be something to it, but I don't know that she's on the right track because they
no.
make a point to say, oh, we don't have anything to do with skiing. It's bad up here. There's just
Too
there's
dangerous, yeah.
it's too dangerous, so we don't we've never really done that. Um, but they make a point to have a poster in the rec room of skiing. It's like I guess you could have one in there, and it could just mean nothing. But I think Kubrick is really intentional, and it's hard to separate, what's intentional, what's
Mhm.
unintentional. And I think it could be I think it could be an intentional thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's getting at. I think she's probably wrong about it. No, because
Yeah.
it's kind of a crackpot theory.
That's clearly a Minotaur. I saw
Yeah,
that was clearly a Minotaur. I don't know.
yeah.
Might just be a skier lady.
It could very well just be a skier. I think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
And then she tries to relate it to the horse picture on the other side of the wall, and I'm like,
What?
horse is not. Yeah, she
It's
starts
just a
talking.
rodeo dude.
It's just a rodeo dude that has
Yeah.
nothing to do
Yeah.
with it.
He's riding a
Um,
bull. I
yeah,
mean,
I really.
a horse. You know.
He's just
Bucking.
riding a horse
She
now
kept saying bucking bronco, and I'm like, what does that have to do with Greek
with a
mythology?
minotaur. Yeah, it has
Yeah.
nothing. It's not a minotaur.
And
So I
she's
think that's kind of crazy. I think
and
you're
then she
probably right.
tried to connect the maze to like the labyrinth with the Minotaur at the middle, the big monster, and Jack is the Minotaur and he's hunting Danny, and I'm like, that's coincidental,
I
but
think it may be inspiration. Like it might have been inspired, but I don't think
maybe.
it's like I don't think there's any underlying meaning behind all
Yeah.
that. I think that's probably just I can see him maybe being like a puppet master or like controlling or like looking down and
Mm,
seeing them being trapped in the thing, and maybe you could somehow relate that to her idea of him being a minotaur. I think it's too much of a stretch. I don't think there's enough to really
mm,
support the whole idea of him embodying a minotaur.
yeah.
And I think it's a really weak argument to say, oh, well, the skiing poster looks like his legs are tiny, and that could be a minotaur because there's a horse poster. It falls apart pretty
Yeah.
instantly.
I can't get behind it, man.
I can't either. I really can't.
I can't get
Um,
behind her train of thought on that one.
I
But
think.
some of the other theories were really thought provoking. I liked the lady who drew out all the maps and the
hmm,
architecture of this of the building. Um, I
the
thought
impossible window was interesting.
yeah, the impossible window was interesting because Kubrick was clearly trying to lay something out there. But I loved when she laid out the Danny's his what do they call those big
Three
wheel
wheeler
his big wheel tracks,
route. Yeah.
his roots, because he went around the bottom floor of the hotel once, or in one scene,
In one
and then the
scene.
next scene he's upstairs, and he's sort of elevated at the same moment as the events with Wendy are happening. And like you have the haunting in the room
Yeah.
going on, and Wendy's freaking out, and she's talking to herself. She's like, all I need to do, we just need to last for a few more months. We'll be okay. And she's talking to herself, and Annie, and it's representative of Danny being on this elevated level of thought because he's got what's his little friend's name, the spirit that possesses him. I don't know that it even is a spirit, but the thing that's possessing him. What does he call it?
Is it called? It's some weird name like Jim or something. It's
Jim. I don't know if it's Jim.
Is it Steve? I feel like it's a really simple name.
Steve.
It's not Steve.
My imaginary friend Steve.
Steve. Yeah. No, let me see if I can pull it up.
Anyway, he's on this elevated level of thinking because he has another entity telling him. Also, Jack is not the only one getting new information.
Oh yeah.
Danny's little friend is telling him new information all the time.
From the beginning.
From the beginning of the movie, which clearly alludes to the fact that Danny has some sort of spirit or ghost or something is either haunting him or possessing him, but it's not an evil entity because it helps Danny.
Yeah.
It helps Danny not only escape from Jack, but it warns Wendy. Because
the red rum sort of thing.
Danny, he's trying to warn her. The reason he writes it backwards is because he can't think in the same mental plane as Danny. Because he's not Danny, and he's not in the same dimension.
Yeah, and mirrors are played on a lot, too.
He's only using Danny as a platform to warn Wendy. So he's a good spirit. He's a protagonist in the movie.
Yeah.
He's a minor character, but he helps progress the story by moving it along. He also provides new information, proving that he's an entity other than Danny. He's not part of Danny's subconscious because he provides Danny new information by showing him the elevator with the blood in his bedroom before they even get to the hotel.
Exactly, which is it's kind of interesting because if you take a step back and you look at it kind of from another perspective, just being the fact that this was happening before the hotel. So there's more than just the hotel holding these evil spirits. There's more than that.
Yeah.
There's another subset that's outside of the hotel.
Mm-hmm. Danny and the black guy, I forget his name. They both have this thing called the Shine.
It's it's Halloran.
Halloran?
That's his name, but I don't think they use his name all that much. Because they even say that when he calls him Doc. They've never called him Doc before then. So there's this. So what you're saying is there is this new information that comes into play with these people that can shine, and the hotel is if you really look at it, it's really a movie about evil spirits versus good spirits. Because there's no as far as we know, there's no shining character. There's no character that can shine.
Yeah.
With the Grady's killing of his family, I don't believe there was a shining character there.
No, Grady is just a amalgamation of all the past evil spirits that have haunted the hotel.
Yeah.
And he is passing on. He's like handing the mantle down to Jack through a series of tests, and one of those tests is murdering his family. And this thing that is possessing Danny and giving him this ability to shine is clearly some sort of good spirit who just somehow got stuck with Danny or just resides in Danny. He doesn't hurt Danny. He doesn't put Danny in harm's way. He just shows him things that scare him. He says, and he even tries to comfort Danny. At the one scene where he says, remember what Mr. whatever his name said. It's just a vision. It's not real. He's comforting Danny. So he's some sort of spirit that exists outside of Danny's consciousness. And I think he exists outside of Danny's consciousness because he provides Danny new information about the hotel
Yeah,
that
and I'm
Danny could
honestly
not have possibly known before.
I'm honestly surprised that 237 did not talk about this sort of conflict between good and evil spirits,
I agree.
because when you break it down, that's really all it is. Like
I don't think that's
looking at,
all it is. I think that's a
well,
lot of what it is.
I think, yeah, exactly. I think that's what kind of the main, if you had to break it down, that's what the main thing is. It's the evil spirit that's haunting this hotel, that's being passed down from caretaker to caretaker,
Yeah.
versus this new entity that I don't think the hotel. I'm going to make a guess and say the hotel hasn't encountered people who can shine except for Halloran, because he can shine, obviously, but he recognizes, there's some bad stuff in this hotel.
Yeah, he's able to
It,
see it. He's able to sense it.
yeah,
And
that
no
other
one
people are
else
blind
is.
to. Yeah,
No one
Ree's
else
blind to it
is.
except for him.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
then
yeah, I
Danny.
think that's interesting.
And I think that Danny reaches out to him all the
And
way to Florida
exactly, it's crazy.
with his naked
Naked
Afro women.
Afro women.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting shot. And I think it's just I think that is the shift from this mantle being passed down,
Mm-hmm.
where it didn't pass down quite the right way, and I think it's maybe a little bit sort of muddy as far as if the mantle was passed down, because he didn't succeed, but he's still in the
No.
photo.
Yeah.
So it's still kind of, but he died in the same way that I think Grady died. Um, but yeah, there's some more interesting theories that go on in Room 237, the documentary. Like the another thing is the movie at the end of the documentary, they start talking about this idea, retracing steps,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that there's so many mirrors in the movie, and there's so many like walking backwards, which I thought was interesting. Because there's a lot of like that scene where, oh my gosh, the one take of um Jack, starting to get angry with Wendy as they're walking backwards, and she has a bat, and they're starting to walk up the stairs, and it's just that
Wendy, my wife, light of my life.
my life. Such a good scene.
It's great.
And then when he's walking backwards in the snow, the snowy maze,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely something there, and I think that I think this is on. I think this is right on. I think the documentary gets this right, where they say it's kind of gives the idea of playing the movie backwards,
Yeah.
and
I
they
loved
they
that. I thought that
was
awesome.
amazing. And I think that a lot of times that can be just crackpot like theories that are just totally not true with, I think, maybe some other movies, but I think this is like on point. I think this is really actually accurate, because they start playing it backwards, and there's a lot of scenes that line up in weird ways.
Well, Stanley Kubrick, we know for a fact, has always been, or was always, heavily involved in the editing process of his movies. He was very hands-on in directing the editing team what to put where and how to put it.
Yeah, and I think that makes for an interesting watch of it
Mm-hmm.
being overlaid with the movie playing backwards.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I can't recall any specifics, but yeah, there's some weird things coming to light. Like I think one is where he's talking with Grady in the red bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
and Danny is doing the shine, like he's shining, and you just see him like looking up in the sky with like twinkles in his eye, and is like he has some spit drooling because he's shining right then. And I think that's I can't help but I can't help but say I think there's something to that. I really do.
What do you mean?
Like the fact that things line up. I think it was intentional that they line up, and I think they are almost like another level of the movie, and how like it's almost like, did you see the movie by the movie Arrival?
Yeah.
And how that movie is like time for these aliens doesn't move, present, it's not linear, and how like it's kind of circular.
Uh-huh.
And I think this movie is kind of similar in that way, where it's kind of a circular story of good versus evil on a very basic level, in how it's kind of never ending. And if you
Yeah.
play it, and I'm kind of coming up with the crackpot theory here, but it's kind of never ending. It's circular. So if you play the movie backwards to front, it's always the plot is always sort of the same, where it's this conflict between good and evil. Um, so I think that's interesting. I think there's something to that. I don't know quite yet on the specifics, I guess, of why
Mhm.
you can play the movie backwards and forwards, but I think there's something there, and I don't think it's a crackpot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who knows? He's dead. We can't ask him anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised he honestly talked as much as he did. The whole reincarnation, that's straight from him.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he talked about it honestly.
Mm.
Um,
Oh
but yeah,
yeah.
overall, I really enjoyed 237. I've watched it many times. I'll probably still watch it because, gosh, it's just littered with so many interesting things.
Yeah. It was a great documentary. I really enjoyed it. Um. All right. Well, that was the Shining slash Room 237, and people who haven't seen either of those are going to be really lost by now.
Oh yeah, you should definitely have seen both of these movies
And
because
then
I
come back and rewatch this part of the podcast, and then you'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I see what they're
yep.
talking about."
Yeah, and I did have in my notes. I like to do when we're talking about movies. I'll put like some pros and cons and just some basic things, talking points.
Okay.
For The Shining, I just put under pros masterpiece,
Okay.
and there's no cons.
Okay. Yeah.
So enough said there. The one other thing that I wanted to mention is the shot where they're zooming in, and it's so steady on the maze, and I'm like trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out how they did that shot.
Uh-huh.
That was actually so basically it was actually tiny figures of them walking around like tiny little models, and then it was shot in a like near an apartment building, and they were overlaid together, so they were like composited of them walking around, but then also there being like a model um, by an apartment building where they shot that. So they were composited. So it actually wasn't a helicopter shot.
Hmm.
So it's kind of crazy how they were able to interlace those. And I was watching it and rewatching and seeing if there's any sort of like lines or any sort of tells where you could see it. And there was not. I couldn't see a single thing. It looked like it was perfectly cut. It was
Yeah.
perfectly overlaid together.
Yeah. It's a editing masterpiece, really.
It really is. But yeah, I think that's really the bulk of what I've got to say about it.
All right. Is The Shining 10 out of 10 for you?
Yeah, it's an easy hands down 10 out of 10. It's film's a masterpiece.
I would agree with that. What about Room 237?
I think I give that a solid 4.5.
Out of
It's not
5.
quite a yeah out of 5. I don't think it's a masterpiece. I think it's really really good, and I think the idea that the crackpot theories are a detractor for me it's a plus for me because I think they just add to I think it's a very stark look at the fan theories for this movie. It's
Mm.
very there's no real editing of it. It's just the upfront good and bad of both of the ideas that the fans.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably a solid 4 out of 5.
But out of 10.
Out of 10, I do the letterbox standard.
Well, I do out of 10, Noah.
Okay, out of 10. All right. Well
You
then,
you don't have to. We'll just okay,
maybe
from
like
now on
8.5.
this will be a podcast staple. You rate it out of 5 and I rate it out of 10,
Fair enough.
leaving
Out
the
of 5.
audience more confused.
Well, that's our job.
I would rate The Shining at 10 out of 10, and I would rate the Room 237 documentary at 7 out of 10
Okay.
because the crazy theories detracted a little bit from my viewing experience.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
In my personal opinion. So, yeah. I liked it a lot. I enjoyed it. But I thought it was a little ridiculous at some parts.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a plus for me, B minus for you.
Yeah.
Overall, very, very interesting watch.
All right. Cool. By the way, The Shining only had a budget of $15 million, which is not that much.
Oh my gosh, $1 million?
15
That's
million.
insane. Oh, 15 million? That's crazy small for what they achieved. That's
Oh yeah.
crazy.
Oh yeah. Very, very, very small budget.
Hmm.
Um, so let's see here. What else have I got in my notes? I think that wraps it up for movies. You want to talk about Fallout for a little while?
Yeah, let's talk about some 76 stuff.
Oh boy.
Um, obviously, I we don't. I mean, we could have played the beta. I didn't. I chose not to, um,
Mm.
because I didn't have the time to play it.
I've watched
Um,
extensive videos.
I'm trying to just kind of stay in the dark with this one a little bit. Honestly, because I really want to have a kind of unique first experience with it.
Yeah.
Um, just because it's a new Fallout game, and
Mm.
I kind of want to be surprised. I don't want to watch too much.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, looks interesting. It's
I'm,
definitely
I'm
a diversion.
I don't know, man. A lot's riding on this game, dude. A lot of Bethesda's a lot of their reputation is what I was trying to say. Their reputation is really riding hard on this game, man.
I'll agree. I think they definitely have a lot riding on it. It is a Fallout game. I think through and through it'll be a Fallout game, and I think that that's something that they're going to have to deal with, because that's not something that the community is just going to be like, oh, it's just a one-off, whatever, multiplayer. No, it's a Fallout game, and they really have they made a they set a precedent with Fallout 4,
Hmm.
which is a little bit different than the earlier Fallout games.
A little bit.
It's more
Vastly,
of,
my friend.
yeah, it's pretty different. I mean, it's obviously a massive difference from the original Fallout
The
1,
top
Fallout
down
2. Yeah, the
2D.
top down. And I've tried to play those, and it's really hard to play those.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, from Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, it's pretty different. And then it, with the multiplayer aspect, I think that'll be interesting. I think it's disappointing that they don't have a real storyline like they did, and it's really just going to be more of a multiplayer sort of base building, online interaction will be more of the centerpiece. So I'm not crazy about that, um, but I think it will be interesting nonetheless to see what they have for us.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I mean, oh, I think it'll be fun.
I think it'll be fun. I mean, it's a Bethesda game. I think it's going to have a lot
I think that,
of bugs.
yeah. Well, one thing I've heard is that it's hard for people to get immersed into the story and the audio tapes and all the tons. Like they said, there's so many audio tapes, and the main complaint people have is that they can't get into audio tapes because there's too much stuff going around with the players around them, which
Yeah,
wouldn't be a problem if you could play solo. But they
yeah. I mean,
purposefully make the game harder the further you go solo.
oh, that's lame.
Yeah.
Hmm,
Yep.
that's interesting. I mean, I would love to have like a solo, like,
Well, I mean, obviously, me and you are probably going to team up, but like,
yeah,
that'll give us a little bit more room for the immersion. But if you have like a team of 4 people, I mean, come on.
yeah, you're gonna steamroll a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think the whole VAT system is garbage. I think that's just absolutely terrible. I saw a video of it. I'm hating it pretty
Looks,
much immediately.
it looks pretty bad, man.
I don't know. I think they should have done away with it. I think that they should have, like they did when they transferred it from the top down. I think they could have just made it something different. I don't think they had to stay with it. It being as early as it was, like because it's 76, it's right when people come out of the vault. I think they could have just change it into a completely different game mechanic. I think that would have been totally fine, because I think Bethesda has a history of doing that with the Fallout games, taking a tried and true mechanic and just change up and changing it. I mean, they did that with the Fallout 4 VATS, where
Yeah.
it's not the same. It's like a moving one, which kind of plays off of the way the combat works in that game, because the combat's a lot more fluid in
Mm.
Fallout 4 than the other ones. So I think
Yeah.
it's fine that they changed it. I think that was probably the best idea as far as VATS goes. And with this one, it just looks bad. It just looks absolutely terrible. I don't see really any use for it. And I think they should have done a much better job with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. that's one of the things that I'm not looking forward to, using that new VAT system. I
Probably just skip the whole thing, the whole VAT system.
maybe I will. I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't.
We'll
I
have
haven't
to see how it
decided
goes.
yet. I haven't played the game. I don't know.
Exactly.
There are already mods for it.
How?
There are mods for the beta.
Oh my gosh. You think
Yeah.
they would give them a little bit of breathing room,
Nope.
just like right out the gate with that?
It's all visual stuff, obviously,
That's fine. I'm fine with that.
but
But
but they are teetering on the edge of cheating with some of these mods. And so this is going to be a dangerous game Bethesda has to play in saying, hey, stop making these mods. They make it easier for you and not for other players who don't have them.
yeah, I don't know how
So
they're gonna play it. I really don't.
are they gonna like
Because
try
they've
and
always,
ban Nexus mods or something?
I don't know. I mean, they've always been a huge supporter of the modding community. It's like, how are they really gonna?
But we've seen a departure from third party mods and more of a closure onto Bethesda regulated modding.
Yeah, and that's the console side of it, and I mean, the PC side is flourishing with, the whole entire modding community still having plenty of access to everything. But yeah,
Mm.
with the console side of it, it's pretty curated. So that's interesting, and maybe they're kind of moving towards more of a curated only, like only doing the you know being it purely regulated by Bethesda.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't be surprised if they took that route. I don't think it'd be the worst route because this being kind of a
Yeah, but man, look, they're, if they try and do some sort of power grab thing here,
I think it's a bad move.
yeah.
Um,
I think
I,
it's a bad move for the modders to start modding so quickly. I
I
get
think
it.
that's a really bad idea.
I get it. You're trying to send Bethesda a message that you want mods soon, but if you start making stuff that makes the game easier for you and not other players, Bethesda's going to be way quicker to shut you down.
Yeah, I think that's be it better to just wait. I think they were like, modding is definitely going to come. I think just the fact that Bethesda just needs to make a stable game because it's multiplayer. They just need to make a stable game,
I,
and then we
I,
can worry about mods.
I foresee a cease and desist with the Nexus.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
They've
Um,
done it before, with some independent mods that have come out for Skyrim and for other stuff. They said, hey, stop working on this. We've already got something in the works that has a little bit to do with what you're working on.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, it's very, very possible they could do a cease and desist. I really hope that's not the case, just because, man, the modding community around Bethesda games is insane. It's
well,
really popular.
other game developers have done that for things being modded. An example, and I'll give you an example for a game franchise that I love. So, a couple years ago, 343 Industries, the
Hmm.
inheritors of the Halo franchise, who inherited it from Bungie Studios, 343 Industries inherited the Halo franchise, and they wanted to explore PC multiplayer competitive gaming that
Hmm.
worked with the Halo franchise. So they set up this modified version of the Halo 3 engine that could run on PC in order to test it uh, for online multiplayer in Russia. And somehow, uh, an American got a copy of this mod for Halo 3, which Halo 3 came out in 2007, so this is a highly modified version of the Halo 3 engine.
Hmm.
Um, and it's the multiplayer and Forge mode only, which is map customization. And so there's no campaign or anything like that. Somehow an American got it, re released it in the United States under his own title with his own launching system, and called it a mod. And it was called
Huh.
El Dorito.
Oh,
And
that's crazy.
Microsoft didn't know about it for a while. And so they shut down their test in Russia, and said, thanks, Russians, for playing the game for a little while. Didn't really work out, didn't turn out the way we wanted it, but thanks anyway. Meanwhile, Halo fans have never gotten Halo 3 on PC, and haven't gotten a real, actual, legitimate Halo game on PC since Halo 2.
Hmm.
So these modders are going crazy. They're nuts. It's basically just Halo 3 but on PC and a highly modified version of it. And so people start modding this mod to make it more like the original Halo 3 multiplayer. They take all the classic armor and put it back in the game, all the classic guns, and it's called El Dorito. Microsoft, and it gains a huge following, huge, absolutely massive following. Tons of people are downloading the mod. Microsoft finally realizes that that's what's going on, and they're like, oh crap, we need to be making money off this. So they send them a cease and desist and say stop, like cancel all downloads of the game, and now it can only be downloaded off the Pirate Bay,
Mm-hmm.
illegally, without Microsoft knowing. People still do it, and it's the servers are still up. Microsoft didn't tell them they had to shut down the servers. The servers are still up, but Microsoft did say you have to stop any more production on it. So they're not producing it anymore. The servers are still up. You can still download and play the game. It's Halo 3 on PC. But Halo 3's multiplayer on PC anyway. A modified version of Halo 3's multiplayer on PC that you're able to get even more mods for. So Microsoft sent them the cease and desist, and then they announced that any further PC Halo experiences will be released under 343 Industries. And that's where the fans are supposed to look.
Hmm.
And not to mess around. So I would not be surprised if Bethesda did the same sort of thing and said any future mods for our games will be released under Bethesda and under Bethesda's supervision. You're not allowed to get mods from these third-party websites anymore, else you'll get banned from the game.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if they did something like that.
And I don't hate that idea. I think just the idea purely, I don't really hate it. I hate the way that the community is going to react. I think that's going to be a
They're going to
terrible
explode,
PR.
man.
Oh, it's going to be the worst. But honestly, just taking a step back and being like, this is kind of a departure. This is kind of more of a one-off thing. I mean, it's Fallout, but it's kind of more of a one-off thing.
Yeah.
And I think curating it is not a terrible idea for a multiplayer game. The fact that they're like mods will be coming to a multiplayer game. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
what developer is going to say that? I mean,
Yeah.
like nobody but Bethesda is going to be like.
Granted,
"We're
we
gonna
have to wait a year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. The year of that is just them having the game be stable,
Yeah.
and I think that's a Bethesda thing, and I think they really need to change their engine because it's old, and
Yeah.
it's time for a new one. And I think that's probably the reason they're having so many problems.
Are they doing that in Starfield?
I don't know. I would guess that they're probably gonna. I don't
They're
know.
going to have to. Probably.
I think they have to. I mean, it's what like
It's
like
space.
three. It's probably like 3 years away. I think that they would probably have to switch up the engine. I mean, it's getting old. But
Very dated.
yeah, it really is, and I think that shows, and I think it's really going to be very telling with 76
Yeah.
at how many bugs and glitches and problems they're going to have with it, and how long it's going to take to really fix all that stuff. I think the beta was a good move. I don't think it's going to really solve everything. I think there's going to be a lot of remaining issues that they're going to have to figure out, and I think that the whole modding thing, saying that the fact that they're saying they're going to do it is crazy. It's a RPG developer saying we're going to make the game multiplayer, and then they're like we're still going to do mods. If they do a curated version of it, I got no problem with that.
Yeah.
I honestly I think it'd probably be for just the game being playable.
It better
itself,
be
I think that's-
It better be mods, and not this whole Bethesda workshop thing.
Yeah, I really think that they should. Honestly, I think the best thing that they should do, they should partner with these big mods, these people who are making these huge popular mods. We should partner with them.
Yeah.
And I think that they should start cranking them out, but them being kind of approved by Bethesda or whatever. I think that's
Well,
fine because they're multiplayer. That's fine.
Well, then I'm worried about the Nexus community then, because that's a huge community. Huge. Nexus mods has been around since like Morrowind.
Forever. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Oh yeah.
I think that they can probably do like a Wild West type thing for PC, where it's kind of like, well, we'll have this server dedicated to just, and if you don't like it, just don't play in a modded server. I'd be fine with that, and then having more delineations between, hey, this is a Bethesda approved modding server. There's nothing game breaking.
Yeah, I think cool stuff. I think for private servers would be a cool idea. Like, for example, they do this for some of the Call of Duty games that have mods. So on Steam. So like, for example, you load up a server list of all these games being hosted,
Yep.
and the in the title of the game, it'll say mods needed to join this game.
Yep.
And so you can click join and it automatically downloads the mods real quick
Yeah.
and then puts you in the game and you just have them.
I mean, that's Gary's mod. That's
That's
what
Gary's
it's.
mod.
That's
Yeah.
just Gary's mod. I'd
It's
be
a
totally fine with that.
guaranteed proven system that works.
Yeah, I got no. Look,
And
here's
if
the thing.
Fallout
Bethesda has
4
a-
Fallout 4, if Fallout 76 does that, I think it would work very positively in their
Oh yeah,
favor.
and then just having private servers be like just whatever. Like you guys can do
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah.
then having the.
The
I
host
think they could do a
decides the
lot.
mods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be the best route. I still think the community would be upset. I think they'd find a way to be upset with that.
Well, the Bethesda community gets upset about everything.
Yeah, but they give the glitches and bugs and all this stuff passes. They're just, it's a Bethesda game. It's no
In the
problem.
words of the great Todd Howard himself at E3 2018, degenerates.
Yeah. Gosh, gotta love Todd.
God Howard.
God Howard, that's right.
God himself.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely thinking that it's
The
Bethesda.
base game
It's
looks
gonna be
fun.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I think that people were saying the visuals look bad. Here's one thing.
I'm worried about optimization. I've heard optimization for PC is not good.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a point of contention.
I don't think I'm certainly not gonna be able to run it at
I think,
high, let alone max graphics.
I don't think I'll be able to max it. I think I'll probably be able to put it on high and run 60 frames, no problem.
I'll get lucky if I get medium at 30.
Yeah, the one thing that people are kind of upset about is the graphics, like the fidelity and how the nuclear explosion looks. Fallout 4 versus 76. I think that's a terrible comparison.
What do you mean?
I think it's a terrible comparison because in Fallout 4, the explosion is it's a it's like a cutscene, like it's pre-rendered, like it's a pre-rendered cutscene. Actually, it's not pre-rendered, but there's no other explosion that happens like that in the game, and they have it optimized. And I think at that point you're actually not in control. No, actually, you are in control at that point.
You
but
can't move because you're on the
you can't move.
platform.
That's right. Yeah. So you're
I've
not
played the
actually
game
really
a billion times, dude. I know it back and forth.
Yeah. So that explosion is pretty. It's pretty cinematic, and it's optimized and designed to be that way.
What about when you destroy the institute? If you destroy the institute, that explosion isn't
I don't think
scripted.
I don't think I.
I mean,
that's the thing
it's
about it.
scripted, but it's not.
Yeah, but the thing about that is the fact that it is scripted. I mean, you have the option to do that, and they optimized it for that. This is totally different. This is somebody pushing a button and deciding a place on the map to blow it up.
Yeah,
it's not
but
optimized for.
it doesn't change. It doesn't change things because you don't lose your progress upon death, which is just weird to me.
Yeah, I don't.
It's not challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they could have a plethora of modes, and I think that would all be really cool to have different ways to play. And the thing about the nuclear explosion I was talking about, it's because people are upset with how it looks. The optimization for Fallout 4 is completely different in this scenario because this is
kind of.
well
This
because
is just a build of Fallout 4.
Well, yeah, but the thing about it is that like it's scripted in Fallout 4 when nukes happen, but it's not scripted at all. It's totally player generated whenever there's a
you
nuclear.
Mean 76?
Yeah, 76. It's totally player generated when and where it happens. So you can't really optimize everything to make that work. It just because it really only works scripted sort of cinematic way. You see what I'm saying?
Kind of.
So I think that it'll totally pan out the right way, and I think you just have to make a delineation between scripted cinematic moment as opposed to like just a game mechanic, because that's what it is. It's just a game mechanic. It was never a game mechanic in Fallout 4. I think it's totally different, and it's hard to compare them because they're just completely different things.
Yeah. Like, are they upset that
that it looks bad, like visually?
I haven't seen it, so I don't know what it looks like.
I'll give it to them. It doesn't look great. But I think that's comparing the two. It doesn't look great, but I'm just recognizing the fact that one's a cinematic
Yeah.
optimized moment and the other's a game mechanic.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that, and not just and also they were way closer to it, so the effects were different. I think you just can't compare them. Um, but I think overall, I think the game looks
Yeah.
good. So I'm
It
looking forward to it.
looks positive so far.
Yeah,
I look forward to playing it on when does it come out? The 14th?
yeah, 14th. It's Tuesday, I believe.
Tuesday, November 14th. I'll be buying it day 1. What do you think?
I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna buy it. I thought about buying it on, but I think I won't get it day one then.
You said on Amazon?
Yeah, because you get like $10. You get like a $10 Amazon credit if you do it
Interesting.
there. Yeah, so I was thinking about doing that. I might just pre-order it digitally. I don't
Mm.
know.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
But yeah,
Well, that's about our time. It's been 2 hours. I would have liked to have gotten into Bioshock today, but I think that we're cutting it pretty long with this one as it is.
yeah.
Noah, thank you. Thank you so much for enlightening me about Bohemian Rhapsody. I
Hmm.
enjoyed that, and thank you for
Yeah,
joining
very much.
me for this
Mm.
podcast. I would like to make a shout out to anyone who's listening. I would like to say we have a Discord server, and we've just recently gotten some folks in there, some cool folks. We post a lot of really dank memes in the Discord server. Only the
Very edgy.
dankest, very edgy, dank memes in our Discord server. It is the number one hotspot for memes in the entire world. And that's a proven fact. And you can't find better memes anywhere else other than our Discord server. So
And
don't even
don't
bother.
try.
Don't
There's
try.
exactly. Don't try
Don't
and prove us
try.
wrong.
Don't listen. Listen. Don't test me. Don't go to other Discord servers. Look at ours. Our memes are better. Yeah, maybe you'll find a different Discord server that has all right memes. But our memes are gonna have our Discord server is gonna have the best memes. Okay.
Yeah, and hey, do I take some of them from iFunny? Sure,
Yeah,
but
you're gonna see a little bit of Noah's iFunny logo on there. That's
yeah,
not
you're gonna see
okay.
some watermarks.
That's not okay, man.
Well, we're working on it.
I'm gonna blast you about those iFunny watermarks.
Well, you know what? I have a day job, so I don't have time to go through Reddit.
I don't go to Reddit.
Oh, okay.
Do
Well,
I look
apparently
like
you
a
do.
pleb to you? Do I sound like a pleb?
Well, we've never met in person, and this is
Yes, we
only
have.
over.
That's wrong. He's making that up. We know
Well,
each
anyway,
other in
that's our
person.
time.
Stop. Um, yeah, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Discord. We'll get some
Smash that like,
smash the like button,
obliterate it
obliterate it, send it to space. Um,
like Tesla.
yeah, and share with your friends. We're gonna have a special guest star on for our next podcast. I think
Who could it be?
our friend Jacob.
Oh, okay.
He's not a celebrity guest or anything. He's just our friend.
He's a celebrity to the podcast. How about that?
Yeah. He's our little celebrity.
Our star. Our star.
Yeah, our little star. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. We'll see you 2 weeks from now for our next podcast. And I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments section. So leave a comment, tell us what you thought, share it with your friends. And until next time, this is the For Future Reference podcast, and we are signing out.
See you.